Welcome to episode 53 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, Christian saw the newly released Frozen 2. Christian and I both watched last Christmas. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the Google Stadia rollout. But first, Christian, you saw Frozen 2 this week, and what'd you think of it?
Crazy good. So good.
Did you see the first Frozen?
Oh, of course, yes. In fact, I saw the first Frozen with my girlfriend at the time and another friend of ours, and our friend was afraid that I was going to get thrown out because I was laughing too hard.
That's great. I've not seen the first Frozen or the second one. Real blind spot. What is the first Frozen about?
It is about a pair of sisters whose parents die while they are young, and one of them has magic ice powers. And then when they grow up, the girl with the powers kind of loses control and sends the entire kingdom into an eternal winter by accident.
Okay, and so how does 2 stack up, and do they build off of the first one?
They kind of build off the first one, if only to assume that you know the characters. Like, this is not necessarily a direct sequel in that, like, the story is one unit, but they are going to assume that you have, like, pre-acquired knowledge of the characters in the world. I think this one was better.
Gotcha. So then what is the plot of this one?
So in the plot of the second one, you find out there's another kingdom to the north of their kingdom, which is Arendelle. The northern kingdom, cleverly called North Aldra, is a kingdom where magic is super common, but the people don't wield it. Instead, they just live with these, like, nature spirits. And so there's a spirit for each element. So, like, the people don't have magic, but they kind of live in harmony with these spirits that are inherently magical.
And so I'm guessing something happens that drives the Frozen characters to meet this new land?
Yeah, they have to try and, like, unravel something that happened in the past between their kingdoms. And, like, a generation ago, the spirits got mad and, like, magically sealed off the northern kingdom from anyone, so no one's gotten in or out since. And so their drive is to try and figure out what went wrong and, like, free the people that are up north.
Gotcha. So before we get into what I think one of the major selling points of Frozen is, who are the voice actors in this?
It's a fairly big cast. I mean, it's not a big cast in numbers because there are literally not that many people in this, but the names are big. It's Kristen Bell voices Anna. She's been in all sorts of stuff. Veronica Mars, she's in The Good Place right now. Idina Menzel, who's been in a number of Broadway shows, voices Elsa. And then Josh Gad is Olaf, and Jonathan Groff is Kristoff. That's kind of the main core gang. And then in this one, they also introduce Evan Rachel Wood as Anna and Elsa's mother, and Sterling K. Brown as, like, a soldier. And I think, honestly, he might be my favorite character.
So what I know Frozen for, and what I think most people know it for, and especially to the chagrin of many parents, is the song Let It Go. And so I'm assuming this one has some real bangers in it.
Yeah, I think the music in this one is stronger than it was in the first. Like, I loved the first. I thought it was fun and it was hysterical. But the music for me wasn't super strong, other than just a couple songs. Let It Go, obviously, being one of them. The opening, Do You Want to Build a Snowman, in the first one was pretty fantastic. There's a wide range of emotion in there. But I think almost every single song in this hits really, really well.
Were there any songs that particularly stood out to you?
I mean, it opens with like a kind of dark, creepy lullaby. The one that really stands out just because it's so different than everything else is the song "Lost in the Woods," and they made a real weird choice to go like full '80s power ballad on it. It's like the movie comes to almost screeching halt, and they do like an '80s power ballad music video with the character walking through the woods, and you get like the overlay of like just his face as he's singing, and then it goes like dark, and it's him in like a black it's him in front of a black background with a couple other faces in the background singing at the same time. Like it's a very '80s music video. As far as quality, I think the last two songs of the show are the best ones, and unfortunately, I can't really go into too much about it without getting like spoilery. Other than just like they're really powerful and emotional songs.
Okay, so you mentioned you don't want to get spoiler release, so I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, but was there any moment in the movie that really stood out to you?
Oh yeah, so they're like comedy wise, Olaf is the little snowman. When they meet when they meet the northern people, they obviously ask like, who are you, what are you doing here, and Olaf does like a 90-second reenactment of the entire first movie, and it's genuinely hysterical.
I should check that out to see what the first movie's about.
Yeah, like it's your wife had texted me and told me she was going to see it, and she hadn't seen the first one. I was like, no, don't do that. And then she texted me afterwards, said something like, it's all right, they did a full recap. And I mean, they really did. It was quick and dirty, but it gets the point across.
Well, what about drama-wise? Anything that stood out?
There's a song that plays over like the Disney Castle logo at the beginning of the first one, and I remember the first time I watched it thinking like, I'm in. Like the movie hadn't even started. It was literally just still like that little Disney Castle intro, and they're singing this song that's very kind of tribal, like Native American-y, and it was just really cool and really different than anything I'd heard in a Disney movie for a long time. And they do that again in this one with the people that they meet up north, and it was a great scene. Like the lights dropped out, and the trees all lit up, and they're all singing and chanting. It was very, very cool.
So you had mentioned that you think you like this one better. Is there anything that contrasts with the original that makes you like this one so much more?
I think the one contrast I had that was negative was I thought Olaf was a little too much. Like he was my favorite character in the first one, and I feel like he may have outworn his welcome a little bit. At least for me, I'm sure the kids loved it, but like it was like they turned him up to an 11 for the first half of this one, and it got a little bit much. Um, on the positive side, like I said, the music is much, much better, and I think the stakes are higher in this one. It always bummed me out that the last song on the soundtrack for the first Frozen is called Bit of a Fixer Upper, and it's literally just about how the male lead's family think he's kind of okay. And it sucks that when you're listening to the soundtrack, that's the last one. Like that's their closer, and even though it happens like halfway through the movie. And the last song in this one is just so much stronger and more powerful, just emotionally. I was really, really happy that they didn't repeat their mistake on that one.
So Disney's really had a pretty good run on. I don't know if what phase you would call this, but the 2010s they started doing like animated movies again. They had Wreck-It Ralph, they had Frozen, they had Moana, which was big, and now they've had this one. Do you think there will be a Frozen 3?
I don't know. Honestly, when they said there was going to be a Frozen 2, I kind of groaned a little bit, and then as time went on, I got more excited, especially once the trailer started coming out. There is a comment in this one where somebody asks, is it's in the trailer, like Olaf says, are is being in mortal danger going to be a regular thing for us, and somebody says no, we're done. And so I can't decide if that was the writers and creators telling the people like this is going to be our last one, or if it was not quite that deep. I kind of hope they leave it at this. It had a yeah, I was really I was really happy with it.
You know what's weird that I don't think this exists right now, but in the 90s with Aladdin and Lion King, you had the Disney Channel that would spin off either you did made for TV movies or made for video movies, or they have like the Aladdin, the animated series and things like that. I'm curious if they start spinning off things like that onto Disney
Yeah,
Plus.
that wouldn't be a bad guess. Like, I mean, I could talk about 90s Disney. I could talk about the Disney Renaissance for a while. Like, this seems to be kind of recapturing that feel a little bit, starting with Tangled when they brought Alan Menken back to do music, and then, like you said, Frozen and Moana. I would not be surprised if we got like little mini series on Disney Plus for these. It'd be fine. I mean, I don't want to cheapen it. I watched the Aladdin animated series and I watched the Hercules animated series, and I mean, neither of them were great, but they were fine for me as a kid.
Right. I mean, I don't think this would be a thing that mass audiences watch, but I imagine it's something kids would enjoy. Like you said, I really enjoyed watching the Aladdin animated series when I was younger. It expanded that universe.
And the other comment I saw online that was made was something along the lines of, like, back in my day, Frozen 2 would have been direct to VHS, half the voice actors would have been replaced, and we would have been happy with it.
I mean, that's true. What was the first like theatrical Disney release of a sequel that you can remember? I know the Pixar stuff, but
Yeah, I mean, this might be one of the first. I know Lion King 2 I liked, but I don't think it got a theatrical release. I'm pretty sure it was right to video.
no, that was video. The Lilo and Stitch stuff, I'm pretty sure was the video. I know Aladdin
Yeah.
was to video. Well, Wreck-It Ralph 2, I can think of that, I guess. But that's pretty recent. I don't know. I don't remember anything in the 2000s
Yeah.
that well.
So yeah, I mean, this is a rare thing, and I mean, they made the right choice because the box office is unbelievable. Worldwide, it's made up $355 million. It's the fifth largest opening of any movie in November ever. Like, it knocked Harry Potter 7 out of the top 5.
That's impressive because that was the Deathly first part one of the Deathly Hallows, right? That was like huge when that
Yeah,
came out.
it has made an ungodly amount of money, and I mean, I worked it all weekend, and so I knew what kind of money it was bringing in. It was crazy.
How's it doing with the critics?
Critics don't necessarily love it. It's at a 76 on Rotten Tomatoes for critic score. Audience has it at 93. Obviously, I agree with the audience and then some. I'd put it probably like high 90s, 96, 97 maybe.
You know what's always interesting to me is I don't think it's very often we see, at least on Rotten Tomatoes aggregating scores, critics and audiences agreeing on the film. It's always like one's considerably higher or lower than the other, and I never entirely understand that.
I mean, it's rare to get a critic score much higher, I guess, than 76% because they're always, I mean, critical. But yeah, I mean, I think 76 is, I'm surprised it's that low.
So this week, Christian and I both saw the newly released Last Christmas. This is directed by Paul Feig, who is, I think, more well known for doing A Simple Favor, Ghostbusters, Spy, Bridesmaids, and he was on The Soup and The Joel McHale Show. So this one stars Emilia Clarke and Henry Golding. Christian, I'm not gonna lie, I was not sold on this one until I heard there was a twist ending, and we are fully getting into spoilers on this. So if you don't want to hear what that twist is, you gotta fast forward in this because this twist was ridiculous. So what did you think of this movie?
All right, well, I mean, to start, I think the larger twist was in the opening scene where this movie very shockingly begins in Yugoslavia in 1999.
Oh my! Did it say 99?
I'm pretty sure it said 99.
Oh my god! I didn't pay attention to that, but I did note they were singing English in Yugoslavia at
Yep.
church.
I mean, I want to poke my head into the beginning of this sometime when I'm working and make sure it said 1999, but I'm almost positive, which is wild because Yugoslavia stopped being a country in 1992.
Right. That's I didn't pick up on the year. I just saw like the 90s or something like that. I didn't realize it was 99.
Yeah, this movie is it's a roller coaster. There's so much going on. They tried to cram so much into this movie.
Well, there are three. There's one main story and then two subplots, which was kind of crazy to me because one's like sort of a love story, one's a story about Amelia Clark reconciling with her family, and the other one's about her job.
Yeah, and then there's the subplots of Michelle Yeoh, whose character I guess is actually named Santa, which is crazy. Her like she has a romance subplot with some Scandinavian guy, and then the sister is like not completely in the closet, but hasn't told her parents that she's gay yet. So that like there's that subplot. Then they try to cram in like a weird racism subplot. Like there is so much going on in this movie.
Oh yeah. Okay. So before we get going into it, the basic premise of this is Amelia Clark's character is stuck working at I don't want to say a dead-end job because that's her full-time employment, but she's at a Christmas store that just sells Christmas stuff year-round. She's trying to make it as a singer, and the year before she had like a heart condition where she almost died and ended up getting a heart transplant. And so she is clearly severely depressed at the start of this, facing she's having a lot of one-night stands. She's avoiding her family. She's couch surfing. Generally just seems to be pretty unhappy with her life when the mysterious man Henry Golding comes in and essentially starts, I don't want to say teaching her how to live, but helping her overcome her depression, I guess.
Yeah, and he is unable to be reached by any conventional means. He doesn't have or he has a phone, but it's in a cupboard, and like he doesn't have like a job, I guess, where he goes. Like he volunteers at this homeless shelter, so she can only see him when he kind of like appears at the store.
Right, and he just always pops in on a bike. So I actually think Amelia Clark played a very good selfish character in this one.
Oh yeah, she sucked. Like I was watching this thinking like I would not want to be friends with this person.
Right, and so I did not love the romantic side with her and Henry Golding, but what I did really like was this was more or less like a look at a life of someone who almost died and was clearly suffering from depression and was trying to overcome that. And I actually like that aspect of this movie.
Yeah, that was an interesting angle to take that I'm not necessarily used to seeing.
But let's go to some of the subplots because they were crazy. So Amelia Clark's boss ends up having like this love story with this Scandinavian guy, and they are both so awkward but start going on dates. What did you think of that?
I think my favorite bit about this was that neither of them could pronounce the other person's name, and so the guy just called her Santa and she just called him Boy.
Right, and he is clearly like a 50-plus-year-old man.
Yeah, very strange.
And then we have the whole side stories with her family. So she was basically estranged with her parents because her dad and her family moved from Yugoslavia to London. Her dad was a lawyer in the Yugoslavia, but then he wasn't able to transfer anything there, so he became a cab driver, and everyone, I guess, got very annoyed with her mom, so everyone in the family is trying to avoid the mom. Amelia Clark and her sister don't like each other because I guess the sister thinks they pay too much attention to Amelia Clark, even though like the sister's a successful attorney.
Yeah, it's not great. The family dynamic here was crazy because like they all so very clearly don't care for each other. Like they even make a point to say like the parents avoid each other. Like the dad works
Right.
late nights so that he doesn't have to come home and deal with the mom, but they still like come together for Thanksgiving and Christmas every year. Like if you're gonna if you know your whole family just can't stand each other, and you know that if you have like a big dinner like this, it's just gonna end in a big fight. Why would you do this? Just
Right.
just have Thanksgiving by yourself.
It's one of those things too where I kind of feel for the mom because it seems like the mom's the main focus of driving the family apart because she also seems to be suffering from some form of depression where she doesn't have any friends here. She seems way too clingy to her daughters and her husband because of that and just tries to like really be involved in their lives in ways that probably they don't want her to be. So I kind of get that aspect, but you're right. They do seem to hate each other, but I think the family moments had some of the funniest parts of the movie in it. Like, we can talk about the other one at the end, but the one was when their neighbor's name was Dick, and they were trying to like explain what Dick was, and she goes, "His name's Penis," and it was just like this whole thing. Like, I thought that was great.
Yes, I did genuinely love that. I did like when she would just start like, "Oh, here's an old Yugoslavian like folk song," and she'd start singing something that was so obviously like real down and dark, and they'd be like, "Please, mom, no."
Yeah. What'd you think about the pudding comment?
Oh my god, I honestly, it was my favorite line of the movie by a mile.
Yeah. So her sister is gay and has like her girlfriend over at some point. And what does the mom say? Like she brings out pudding for the mom, and the mom's like, "Enjoy this lesbian pudding."
Yeah, it's when she goes to sing one of her songs. She says, Before we eat this lesbian pudding, I would like to sing a song." And they're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was rolling. Because that's like one of the last scenes of the movie. And I was like, way to save it at the last possible second.
Right. So you notice the one story we haven't really been talking about is like Henry Golding, which is like the other main character of this. I thought those parts were pretty weak. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was very... it's exactly what you expect it to be, right up until it isn't anymore. It's just, like, she falls in love with this guy, and he shows her, there's life beyond whatever you're going through, and she's like, "Thank heavens I fell in love with you, now I'm not depressed anymore," or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh no, this is not what you thought it was."
Right. And so before we talk about the twist, I will say, like, I think Henry Golding's fine in this, but I just feel like he has the same beats as he did in Crazy Rich Asians. Like, he's extremely charming and nice, and then he has to be, like, sad at the end, and, like, that's all it is. I'm really curious to see how much range he actually has when he's acting.
Yeah. Crazy Rich Asians also starring Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, they were both in that. She was his mom in that one, right?
Mm-hmm. And they do not
Yeah.
interact in this one at all for reasons that will become apparent.
Right, right. Okay, so here's the spoiler of the movie. Do you want to do the honors on this, Christian?
Yeah, sure. So, Henry Golding is the ghost of the man whose heart she got in the heart transplant. So no one else can see or hear or interact with him, and she only can because she has his heart in her body.
Right, and this is where so many questions came up for me. Normally, when you're operating under this, you have some sort of concept of like, okay, he's an angel, or he's just a ghost, or whatever. It's really unclear what he is because he just pops out of nowhere a year later and starts helping her, and there's like, oh, we can't fall in love. Like, what? Do you think he was, like, did he have some sort of purpose? Like, okay, so why I thought he was an angel at first was if you look at the movie poster, one of their taglines is "It's a wonderful life with wonderful X'd out." So, that has two meanings. It's like, oh no, her life isn't wonderful, but also it's a reference to the movie It's a Wonderful Life, where an angel comes to Earth and tries to show someone that life's worth living. But then there's no indication that he's actually an angel. It just seems like he's a ghost.
Yeah, so that was the assumption that I was operating on when it first came out, was that a couple people at work had talked about it, and we said, between the tagline and the way in the trailer he says, like, oh, we're not meeting by accident, there's a reason, and we're like, he's gonna be an angel. And then when he wasn't, like, I full disclosure, like, I knew the real twist going in. Somebody had told me, and so I was kind of watching and scanning for it. And yeah, when you found out that he was a ghost, I was like, oh my heavens.
They kissed.
Yeah, like that's all I got out of it was that, yeah, he was just, Henry Golding, the friendly ghost. And she asks, why can I touch you and why can I feel you? And he's like, because I'm a part of you. And he points at like her heart transplant scar, and I think I audibly groaned.
I want to see the movie of what Henry Golding was doing when he was not on screen, because he would just disappear for days at a time, and I was like, oh, because I knew there was a twist coming, so I was like, okay, like he's an angel, he's helping other people. Like when he names all those people, I'm like, he's helping them, and it's like, no, he just like went and hung out in the park for 3 days until like he showed up again or something.
Yeah, it was real strange, and like I kept trying to grapple with whose house is that, because he takes her to an apartment like about 3/4 of the way through, and she spends the night there, and he's gone in the morning. And like, again, I knew that he was dead going into this, and I was like, what is this? Did he take her to like, I don't know, like a battered women's shelter that he knew would be empty? Like what's... And then she goes back and it's like, oh no, he owns it, it's just dead, and like he's just dead and it's on the market, so it's empty. And I'm like, you haven't sold an apartment in downtown London in 12 months?
Yeah, well, they're like, oh, it got tied up in the estate. And it's like, okay, I guess I can suspend my disbelief that much, because I know estates can really hold stuff up in big cities.
Enough. I must have missed that line while I was rolling my eyes at something else. I do like our side-by-side notes here of, did they steal those skates? They definitely stole those skates.
I was writing these down when I was looking at your notes. I was like, oh, they definitely... like, I was trying to respond to some, because... So, he takes her on a date where they go ice skating, and he teaches her to skate. And then, like, you get a flashback, and it's just, like, her, like, acting like she's with someone and runs out with these skates. Like, they didn't go in there with skates, man. They jacked those.
The flashback I wish we would have seen is, like... Because they do, once she realizes he's dead, they go back and show you a couple scenes where they're together, but it's actually just her, and so they recut them so that he's missing. The scene that I wanted to see was the one that happens like 10 minutes earlier, where she is like full on making out with him on that bench in the park, and I wanted it to like clip around to a couple people staring at her like making out with midair and being like, what is she doing?
Oh my god, that I also wanted them to clip back to like was just having full conversations with him while the bus was waiting for her to get on, just like this bus driver just staring at a crazy woman like talking to no one.
I was thinking about when they were outside of the homeless shelter and she was just apparently screaming at the building.
Oh my god, yeah. So the homeless shelter is also its own plot, where she starts looking for him at the homeless shelter and starts volunteering there, finds a whole new purpose in her life of helping people less fortunate than her, and they end up putting on like a Christmas show. The whole thing is she says she can't sing anymore because she doesn't feel whole, and then she sings at the end, and it's great, and everyone dances. So
I loved the old guy that was at one of the homeless guys, Arthur, because they said something like, Arthur, you don't have to audition. We're going to put everyone in. And he's like, well, they're all going to hate me if they think I'm getting special treatment.
Right. Yeah. No, I thought some of the people they had playing homeless people were good. Showcasing all their talents and whatnot.
It's been... it was a ride.
One thing I will say, even though I think the twist is just insane and doesn't make a ton of sense, I do like the backdrop where it's like you don't need a man or you don't need a significant other in your life to be happy. You can find other things in the world to enjoy. Like you don't need someone to necessarily save you. So I did like that message.
I thought they were setting up that once she finds out that she's been in love with a ghost, that she was going to start dating that other guy that is obviously into her at the homeless shelter, and that went nowhere.
Oh my gosh, I think there was another subplot for that they cut out, because they left a couple scenes where it's like, that dude's totally into her, and then they just drop it after he's a ghost.
Yeah, very strange. And I don't know that guy ever actually is on screen again.
If he's on screen, he's somewhere at the Christmas play.
Just super weird.
Yeah, because like he says like disparaging comments about Henry Gordon's character, and you're like, oh yeah, this guy totally crushing. I bet that, dude, they had to have had footage, and they're like, it's muddying the waters too much. Let's cut it or something like that, because it makes no sense why else they would film it like that.
The studio only said we could do 9 stories at a time, so we got to get these couple out of here.
Right. And so the final subplot I really want to talk about is like they have 5 minutes of commentary on Brexit, where it's just like through the news, and then the mom feeling discriminated against for being an immigrant, and there's like a scene where some guy yells at Eastern Europeans for yelling on the bus, and the mom says this line that I thought's hilarious about just people. She goes, "I don't know why they hate us. We're here. We're fine." And then she just goes, "It's all the Poles' fault." It's like the whole thing is xenophobia. She's like, "No, we're just going to blame it on someone else." And it plays the comedic beat perfectly because Emilia Clarke's character is like, like she was consoling. She's like, "Yeah, I want to go get you some tea now."
Yeah, like I feel like that was a subplot that maybe got like aborted halfway through, like the homeless shelter volunteer romance. I feel like they may have had written something for those 2 cops that just kept showing up over and over again. Yeah, it was a ride.
Also, something I don't understand, and we don't live in the UK, so maybe that's why. I thought a lot of the current European xenophobia was directed more towards people from the Middle East and not necessarily Eastern Europeans.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I think they may all just get wrapped up together.
Yeah.
Like, certainly not my favorite Paul Feig movie. Definitely, I liked it so much more than I liked Simple Favor, which is a movie I actively despise. But like, I love Ghostbusters and I love Spy, and like he's been branching out into drama, and I don't know how well it's landing.
Yeah, I don't hate this movie. This plot is literally because they sing Last Christmas like 3 or 4 times throughout this movie. This plot is literally the line of Last Christmas, I gave you my heart. Like, and then they just made a movie out of it. It seems like it was something you would go to like a writing prompt on Reddit, and they just made a whole movie with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening carefully, they give the whole plot away, like they give the whole twist away in the trailer.
They really do. So I don't like. I was surprised because I thought this would be full-on romantic comedy, and I'd say only like 25% to 50% of it was, and the other half was about a woman overcoming her depression, and I definitely liked that part better. I will say I thought some parts were funny, but the audience I saw it with, they were howling at like all of the jokes, so they nailed their audience's funny bone. So do you know how this did at the box office?
It did pretty well for making its budget back. I mean, it's not going to break any records certainly, but its budget was between 25 and 30 million. It made 51, so it made at least double its budget back. So I mean, that's in that regard, at least it was successful.
And so, critically, this has a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score has it at 81%.
Maybe somewhere in the middle of those two.
Yeah, I definitely want to put it at 81%. I don't think it was horrible. I don't think it's a Christmas classic, but unless you really like rom-coms or love Christmas movies and you're jonesing for one, I don't know if I would suggest seeing this in theaters, but if this is like on TV or Netflix or whatever, you could have worse movies on in the background. Like, I actually might put it above Love Actually as a Christmas movie.
No channels should dedicate a 24-hour marathon to Last Christmas. All right.
Definitely not. What about you? Would you suggest our audience check this out?
I feel largely the same way you do. If you're jonesing for a Christmassy romance, this will scratch that itch. But it's much weirder than it is anything else.
finally, the Google Stadia has started its rollout, and it has not been smooth. Have you heard anything about this, Christian?
A little bit, just what I've been able to like pick up on Twitter from the couple like gaming people that I follow.
So this, for anyone who doesn't know what the Stadia is Google's attempt to break into the console market. Now, their idea is that they want to make it so you just stream games directly from your browser or like a Chromecast app or something like that, use their controller, and then that way you don't need a console. The thing is, right now, the only way you can try it out is if you had pre-ordered the Founders Pack and you had to pay $130, and you basically get a controller, a Chromecast that has the special app you need to run it on it, and a couple months of Google Stadia Pro, which gives you a couple free games. And so the rollout for it has not been smooth. The critics did not love it. It was mostly middling scores. People said this would be a really cool concept if it worked. Either they had streaming issues or they were just like, well, I can already play this game somewhere else. And then once they actually started getting it into the people who pre-order its hands, the problem was they actually weren't getting it to everyone who had pre-ordered one, and some people, as of recording this, still haven't got theirs, or they haven't got, any information on. They're still waiting after, a week or whatever it's been out. So it's not looked good for them.
Yeah, it's been pretty bumpy.
Well, when they announced this, I had a ton of questions about this. Primarily, if you're streaming, how does it look? And after my experience with PlayStation Now, I'm actually a little bit higher on the idea of streaming games than I was. But granted, I played a low intensity game. This rolled out with Mortal Kombat 11 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Destiny 2 and about, I think they had 22 total games. So I don't know how well this works if you don't have great internet, because they said if you have good enough internet, you're streaming 4K. And that brings it into my second issue, which is you are going to run into your monthly data caps. At least in our region, I know we have data caps if you stream so much content. Like, I think someone said they streamed Destiny 2 on 4K for an hour, and it was like 10 gigs or something like that. So if you're a heavy gamer, you are going to reach those data caps relatively quickly.
Oh yeah, like it's like Netflix and like streaming video is one thing, but streaming entire games is like, I don't think people fully can grasp how much data that's going to be. Like, not just data in the terms of like your mobile network data or anything, but just like the amount of information that's going to have to be coming through is extraordinary.
Right. And so Google's answer has been like, oh, ISPs will just start allowing higher data caps. And it's like, what in the history of ISPs has indicated that is ever going to happen?
Yeah. And like, to bring it around to something else too, like we had that net neutrality decision like a year or so ago where ISPs are basically allowed to just throttle your data kind of whenever for whatever reason.
Right. And so Stadia is going to run into competition right now because Xbox has Game Pass, and then they've also rolled out another feature, which I don't know very much about. I think it's called like xCloud or something like that. So I'm not going to talk about what that is. And you have PlayStation Now, which what actually drew me to both of those are you don't have to stream. You can download the newer stuff, which I think is a better proposition than just being like, okay, you have to stream it because my internet's okay, and it looks like, according to their website, that I could play certain games at certain settings on it, but I couldn't do like the best tier stuff. So at that point, granted, I already paid to get into the ecosystem, but I would just pay to buy the game at that point.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because then you have it, and then like if there's ever an issue with connectivity, because that's my thing is not just data caps, but like if my internet drops out, suddenly my console is a brick.
Right. Or if you just don't have internet anymore, you move somewhere
Yeah.
that doesn't have good reception, or not reception, but like a good connection. So also what is rough on this to me is that there's the $130 buy-in right now. You can find a used Xbox One S for 150. They have insane Black Friday deals coming out for the PlayStation 4 where you get God of War, I think The Last of Us, and Spider-Man for $200 new. Like, those are much better deals. But I think where Stadia maybe starts to shine is once next gen comes out and they get once they allegedly, they're working on a free version of this. Once they get that out, maybe it becomes a little bit easier, because if you don't want to buy a console, you can be like, well, I just really want to play this one game. My issue though right now is they have 22 games that you can buy, which granted, they're pretty good games. They have Assassin's Creed Odyssey, they had Mortal Kombat, Destiny 2, which is actually free to play right now anyways, but they're charging full price. So Assassin's Creed Odyssey, unless you have like the Stadia Pro, which is the Founders Pack, is $60. Christian, I bought that game a year ago for like $30 when it was like relatively new.
Yeah.
I looked on GameStop, they're $25 there. They're like $30 on Amazon. You can get it on eBay for low 20s. Like, it's just I'm sure on Steam and stuff, like Ubisoft has sales a lot. Like, there's just better deals out there if you already have the ecosystem for it.
Yep, and we have not addressed, and I don't know if it's in your notes here or not, but on starting on Friday, reports started coming out that the Stadias were overheating and shutting down in as soon as like 10 minutes of gameplay.
Oh no, I did not see that.
Yeah, I've got an article from CNN Business that says Google Stadia customers are saying their Chromecasts are overheating and shutting down after 10 minutes to a few hours of gameplay.
See, that's crazy to me, because that's the purpose of this, is they're just streaming the image. Like, why is it so much different than if they can they not handle 4K video, because you'd have that same problem? But the Chromecast itself shouldn't really be doing any of the work. It should be a computer, a supercomputer or wherever that should be streaming that to you.
Yep.
So that's crazy to me. The biggest problem I see with Stadia right now is I don't know who their audience is, and they did not have a spectacular launch on this. They were still missing most of the features. Like, they don't have friends lists, trophy support. You're supposed to get a code that you're able to send to get other people to try it out. They haven't put those out yet, and they're like, oh yeah, they're coming out later. The original launch lineup was 12 games until there was a lot of rumbling. So then they quickly added 10 more that were supposed to be coming out later, and then people were paying the $130 buy-in. Like, that's your most loyal customers right now, and you do not look good at this point, because no one is really praising this. They're like, yeah, it's a cool concept, but like I said, most people just don't know who this is for, because if you're the one who's going to get this, you either already have a very good computer or you're probably playing on consoles. Like, I think there's a much smaller market of people who are just like, well, I just want to buy one or two games.
Yeah. Yeah, and for something like this, something that's going to hit the market and claim to be a game changer, like, first impressions are going to be everything, basically. So, like, they've already bungled this pretty bad in terms of just moving forward. Like, you're going to have to fight a pretty strong uphill battle now to get over, like, the negative press that is the first on the scene.
Oh, for sure. And I don't know if Google's really known for sticking with stuff once the press gets bad, unless it's like an immediate success. So, like, they stuck with all the bad press that YouTube's being, because there's nothing else on the internet that YouTube's really competing with.
Yeah.
Gmail's some of the best some of the best email on the internet. But do you remember Google Plus? Like, they're like, we're going to kill Facebook with this, and after 4 years, they gave up on it.
Yeah, but they tried some weird stuff to keep it alive first, where they, like, forced you to link to your YouTube, and it caused a bunch of problems where people didn't want their YouTube and their Google, like, social media connected to each other, and like everybody got real mad at them.
Right. So I just don't know. This is not generally their space. I think they just have a lot of things working against them, I think, to be successful. Not just internal, like, apparently the user interface is horrible. Their marketing has been not great. and just all the bad press that surrounded the launch. But like we talked about earlier with the external stuff of just the US not having the best internet infrastructure and data caps, and then you also have Microsoft and PlayStation out there, or I guess Sony technically, working with their own streaming services, and they already have like I would say the gamer market right now who are buying consoles is approximately 120 million people, maybe up to 150, somewhere in there, and that's already monopolized by Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. It's hard to make inroads there. They can. Obviously, PC gaming's huge, but it's just one of those things where if you have a gaming PC, you probably also have like a strong enough computer that you can run everything that you want anyway, so I don't know why you would get this.
Yeah, this seems to me to be like they were hoping to gear it towards like you were kind of saying, they wanted to pick up maybe casual gamers who said like, oh, I don't want to commit to a console, I just want to play this, and hope to maybe coast along on the Google brand alone, and then they didn't anticipate like the gamer at large community jumping in on this so fast and really kind of taking it to task.
Yeah, and I feel bad because I've been pretty negative about it, but the technology they're working with is really cool, and even though I don't necessarily like the way that it's going, I feel like this is the way that video games are going. Like, it's eventually going to be streaming. Even though I like owning games, I still buy games for the most part on discs and everything, but I know that is slowly becoming a thing of the past.
Yeah, I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, physical media isn't necessarily gone the way of the dinosaur, and I mean, we've had Netflix for how many years now, and I mean, I still buy DVDs and Blu-rays, and I know a lot of other people do too. And it's hard to give somebody like, I mean, you can, but like a like 1 month Netflix gift card, I feel like isn't as exciting to open on Christmas as like a Blu-ray of a movie that you wanted, and I feel the same way largely about games.
All right, and now it's time for our Amazon review game. Just a quick recap. I have a 5-star Amazon review that I'm going to read to Christian. He will have 2 yes or no questions to help narrow it down. He can then ask for another review, 2 more yes or no questions, a third review, 2 more yes or no questions, and then he has to guess. If he gets it on the first try, he will get 3 points. Second try, 2 points. Third try, 1 point. All right, Christian, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Like most people who will probably buy this movie, I have a 2-year-old daughter who will not shut up about it. We ended up renting this movie so many times on Amazon we could have bought it twice over already, so we finally did. Amazon's streaming quality is more than acceptable. It's easy to access in a flash, and for parents like us to play over and over and over and over again. To be honest, I'm surprised the suggested pairings to this movie aren't a pair of earplugs. Don't get me wrong, it's a great story. We've just seen it about 5,000 times now. But the toddler digs it, and it doesn't drive my 8-year-old son crazy. Win-win. If we had bought stock in this movie, I probably could have retired comfortably this year from our rentals alone.
Ooh. Is it a Disney movie?
Yes.
I'm going to take a gamble. Is it Frozen?
It is Frozen.
Yeah.
I was trying to trick you by picking up what we're definitely talking about today.
Nice.
You're down to Disney, as it's either Frozen or Moana at that point.
Because I was looking at our scoreboard and I was falling behind.
There was one review I saw and I couldn't pick it because it was not helpful at all, but it was just like, my dog loves this movie, and went on about their dog and then just had a picture of their dog, but it gave like no hint as to what else the movie could have been.
That's amazing.
All right, guys, thanks for checking out our episode. Before we sign off, Christian, what are you going to be checking out this week?
Well, I mean, it's Thanksgiving. I don't know exactly how much time I'm going to have for movies and stuff. I hope I have some time because I do want to get caught up on a few things. I still haven't seen Ford versus Ferrari or Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Also, Knives Out comes out, and I want to see that pretty badly. Otherwise, tonight at tomorrow morning at about 1 a.m., the next Brandon Sanderson novel drops, which is Starsight. I've been waiting for that for about a year, so I'm gonna probably devour that because it's technically like it's more a young adult style. So I mean, it's gonna be a fast read. I think I read the first part in like a day and a half last year.
That was released around last October or something, right? Cool. This week, I'm glad you reminded me, I will probably be seeing Knives Out Friday or Thursday or something with my wife. She really wants to see that one. I really want to see Ford vs. Ferrari, but we are so busy getting ready for Thanksgiving because we're traveling and we have to make stuff, so I don't know if I'm actually going to have time to see it tomorrow or not. Otherwise, I would like to check out Noel this week, the Disney Plus Christmas movie. And I am still playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It is so awesome. I was hoping I'd be done, but I started like 100%ing the worlds that I could. So I put some time into that. I would say I'm about like 4/6 of the way through the game, somewhere in there. I think I'm like towards the end of chapter 4, and there's 6 total chapters. So getting there, but I have a couple more plans to 100% first.
That's what I've been doing on Spyro too, just world by world, zone by zone, trying to 100% them.
Yeah, Spyro's, I mean, not the flying parts, but the exploring the worlds is fun, and it's fun to move around in that game.
Yeah, I guess the second one is a little, like, I remember the second one the least. It's, the worlds in the first one are so, like, linear. You know exactly where to go to finish at least the story aspect of it. And the zone I'm in right now doesn't even have a story aspect, really. It's you land, and they're like, something's wrong, see if you can figure it out, and the map is just like a circle. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, man. I'm excited to play Medieval because I had such a good time with Spyro last year. I am totally digging the PlayStation 1 remakes. Alright guys, thanks for checking out our episode. If you would like to contact us, we're at gambots.blog@gmail.com, or you can reach us, we're at Gambots Network on Twitter. If you have a suggestion for the Amazon review game, please let us know and we'll probably use it. Otherwise, if you're listening on a service that you can either like or subscribe, we'd appreciate it if you rated us or something like that, as it would help with marketing. Otherwise, thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.